Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Airspeed Plays TCG video, and in this I suppose it's not a TCG I'm going to be playing, it's more of a CCG in terms of you don't actually trade the cards because of the way the whole thing works. But the game I'm going to be talking about today is the Shift CCG single card game. You know, it's a collectible card game, but the kind of tagline is that it's a single card game. And that means that you basically, instead of having a deck, only use one card. And you know, you have it's one-on-one, and each card, the game says, has the kind of depth of a full deck of cards or something like that. And yeah, some brief backstory, as you can see on the back, is that this is a Kickstarter game, as you can see here. It was funded, it was really popular. I think it's only been like funded, like out for like a couple of months now, but I only found out about it a few weeks ago when I was looking up some stuff on the new Future Card Buddy Fight game that's coming out in like a week. But yeah, I got this online. I will have links in the description on where you can get this game. Obviously, I wasn't involved in the backing of this game because I didn't know about it at that time. But link in the description to their Laboratory Games, their website where you can actually buy this. It's pretty cheap. I think $10, and then $5 shipped to America, and $10 shipped to another $10 shipped to anywhere internationally. So you're either going to pay 15 or 20 for this, and this pack is all of the cards in the game, I think, except the backer exclusive card. I think that was only for people who backed the game. But I just find it interesting that, you know, this is a card game and this is all the cards in the whole set, and it's just you use one. So with this you get like 13, I think there's 13 cards in here. But let's actually open this and I'll talk about it a bit more. I'm going to do this video in two parts. First of all, I'm just going to be opening it, and then I'll have to talk about it briefly. Then I'll obviously have to cut away to actually play the game and come back and explain to you like how the game is played, how I like it and stuff like that. But yeah, really cool. This is my first time ever like getting something that like has been started by Kickstarter. But I just really love the idea for this game. So okay, there's the first card. But this one is just turn order card. Explains the different parts of your turn. The cover card. And then let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 different actual cards. And then this icon guide for all the stuff that's on the cards. There's stuff like that. It's actually fairly complicated. You can see modifiers, alpha, beta, delta, omega. All these icons, head to tails, wild, burn spirit, fresh spirit, power guard. Flip a coin, heal, gear level, critical, and then you've also got damage criticals here. And then on the back is just the barcode and stuff like this. But yeah, here's the different characters of the game. Neon Blade Gemini, Impenetrable Fighter Kuma, Boomer Ranger Dingo, Puppet Master Leia, Psychic Hound Reginald, Vampire Knight Berry, Mark II, Pro Tailback Johnny, Dark MC Melpom, Data Expert Akira, and Fleet Admiral Leo. Oh, and Impromptu Hero Pants Penguin. That's a pretty important thing. And Ritual Totem Raptor. Now on the back is a bio for each of these characters that has obviously if they're male or female, or I assume none of them are neither. So yeah, all male or female. I'm not exactly sure what this bar is for up here, but and then supposedly I think the creators of the game have said that the bio kind of explains the play style of each character. So there's a nice they have created a little bit of a story for these guys. It likes stake wide open spaces for the Ritual Totem Raptor. Dislikes wide open spaces. So that's interesting, and was designed by this person or not. That's interesting. So yeah, I think one of the things when the Kickstarter was going was that there was like 3 creator cards, and obviously That's why these ones say created by X person. But yeah, really cool. Basic layout of the card is that the game is called Shift because you shift the cards into different positions, and each side is basically a different ability, and each one's called like that's gear 1. There's 2 different gears too that you can go into, so you can turn it either that way or that way. I think gear 3 is the best one, and there's also a specific skill right here. So Gemini may spirit shift twice per turn, and the whole idea of the game is that you know, I think without reading the rules properly, you know, that you put it down, you're able to shift into one gear like once per turn, but and then there's like a defensive shift as well, stuff like that. They all have their attack power, defense power, and then their abilities, which are mainly triggered by coin flips, so heads, tails, and getting them in order, activate different other abilities. So other than that, you know, it's just there's obviously different mechanics and stuff like that. I think there's a mechanic similar to Counterblast from Vanguard. When you get damage, the whole thing is that you get 6 damage, and that the only thing in addition to this you need is like a bunch of coins and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm pretty impressed so far. You know, the cards are really nice, nicely printed, feel like just like proper professional cards, and yeah, they're pretty cool. They're definitely a very interesting like design on these characters. Like I'm just calling this thing Mark II as like a Maui statue or something like that, but likes chocolate hearts and dislikes staying up late, so that's a pretty unusual thing there. And yeah, there's just some really interesting, unique character designs here. Definitely looking forward to playing it. So I'm gonna cut away here and come back and see how this game actually plays, and I'll probably show you guys how to play and stuff like that. Okay, so I'm back now. I've played a couple of games of this, and I'm now going to do an example game to show you how to play and give my thoughts on basically my first experiences playing the game. So the sample game is going to be between Impromptu Hero Pants Penguin and Ritual Totem Raptor. These are the first 2 cards I used, so I think it's fitting that I used them as the example. Before I get into that, what you actually need to play the game, in addition to having 1 card for yourself, 1 card for your opponent, is you need a coin, because obviously the abilities involve coin flips. As you can see here, heads, tails. You just need multiple coin flips. And then you just need 10 double-sided things to act as damage, because when you take 5 damage and then take 1 more, you lose the game, so the most you need is 10. And I just use actually Yu-Gi-Oh cards, kind of like the whole damage system in Cardfight Vanguard, where, okay, face up, that's active spirit. Face down, it's burn spirit, and it's just an easy way to keep track of it. You can stack them on top of each other, and so on. So, you know, if you like card games, you already have a bunch of token things you can use. And then, you know, it's always nice to have the icon guide beside you and the turn order thing beside you. What I really like about the game before getting into it is that each character really does have their own kind of style of play to them, and it is kind of surprisingly complex in terms of like really getting into what each character's strategy is, because it's not immediately like obvious what it is. Like with Ritual Totem Raptor, it's he's all about like getting up to like gear 3 really quickly, because he has the whole ability shift at the start phase, and then like forcing your opponent down to a lower gear with his Omega. This guy's kind of like a Punisher, because when he takes damage you can lose some of your opponent's defense, and then he can do a lot of damage really quickly because he has 2 abilities here in the Omega, and then the gear 2 beta where you can attack twice with the whole 2-turn thing. So there's some really nice stuff going on. As I mentioned, this character, one of the main characters in the game, can spirit shift twice a turn, and a lot of the abilities focus around, you know, allowing you to shift again or don't downshift after doing something. This card's really defensive. It allows you to kind of change the order of when you decide to defend. This is quite an offensive card. And then this guy's pretty interesting in that his ability allows you to flip the coin first, and depending on the result, then choose which modifier you're going to use. So he's pretty interesting. But that's just a brief example of what some of the play styles are. I'll actually get into how you play the game now. So you start off by just deciding who's going to go first, obviously by using the coin. In this case, I'm just going to say the penguin goes first. And you're not allowed to attack on your first turn, is the obvious thing, as is the case in most games. So what all you're allowed to do, looking at the turn order, is you start your turn, you can either attack or shift. So since you're not allowed to attack, you have to shift. So to shift, all you have to do is basically turn the card sideways. You're only allowed to shift up one gear, so go from 1 to either of the gear 2s. This side has the ability about don't downshift from spirit guarding. You can't spirit guard until you actually take damage, so it's probably best to just shift to this gear because it has more natural defense and arguably better like attacks as well. But that's the turn, and then you turn it over to your opponent who can attack this turn. And again, you have to look at like, okay, 1100 defense, only 300 attack, and at most the attack gets up to 800 with the beta modifier. So not an incredible amount to kind of do apart from shift. So again, you can choose to this, but its ability is if you take damage, you can unburn some of your spirit. No damage yet in the game, so it's probably best to either go here and hope you get the coin flips to get the attack above the defense, or just go here for the natural attack power and maybe try and get this shift icon. So this is where the strategy comes into play. Like immediately, do you shift up to the left gear 2 or the right gear 2? In this case, I think it's probably best just to go for this, so you're not relying on coin flips to get damage right now. But since he shifted, he can't attack, and this is the end of his turn. So you go back here, and this is where you're allowed to now attack. Since you didn't do anything apart from shift, you stay in gear 2 into your second turn. And you can, if you want to, shift up to gear 3. But then you'd have to end your turn. And the Omega, the most powerful attack, requires you to have 2 damage to activate the ability. And you don't really want to waste that right now. So waiting an extra turn. So it's probably best to just attack here, because obviously 900 defense and 1200 attack. But I'll explain something about guarding in a minute. So you'd have to choose an attack first. The first attack, the alpha modifier, gives you extra 400, but the critical ability is heal 1 spirit, and that's not really going to help now because there's no damage. The beta one gives you 200 and 400 defense, and a second turn, skipping your opponent's turn, so I think that's the attack to go for. So how the turn works is that you go, okay, I'm attacking, I'm going to use the beta modifier. Then your opponent has to decide how they're going to defend. And this is where kind of some of the strategy comes into play, in that 900 defense, the attack is going to go through regardless unless they do something to defend. They can't spirit guard because there's no damage, but they can do something called active guarding, which is adding your the gear you're in's defense to the defense from an earlier gear. So in this case it would be the gear 1 700 defense, bringing it up to 1600. But if you do that, the defensive player also has to downshift because they've defended using their first gear, so they have to go back down to it. While also, if you attack, you also have to shift down to gear 1 at the end as well. So there's the kind of some of the strategy right away. Or you could just take the damage and use your normal guard, the 900, and just take the damage. And early on in the game, it's actually good to take damage because you do require stuff to use the abilities. Like all the Omegas require you to burn spirit, so to get to those attacks you need to take damage. So in this case the best decision is probably just to take the damage right now. So the attack goes through. Well, the defense declaration is, looking at the turn, you see it's attack declaration, defense declaration, mod activation, mod resolution. So you choose your attack, you choose your mod, they decide how they're going to defend, which obviously, you might be happy with the defense you have, or you might be expecting them to get the coin flips, and then you go for a higher defense. But in this case, yeah, he's just going to defend with the normal damage he has. So then the mod activates. So we said we're going for the beta one, which requires a heads and a tails, which means that you flip 2 coins. So here we go. We're looking for a heads first. And nope, that's a tails. But you only get the critical if you get them in order, but if we still get a heads next, we still get the attack and defense bonus. So there, heads. So that means we get extra 200 attack and 400 defense, but we don't get the critical because even though we got a heads and a tails, we got them out of order. So the attack goes through, and this person takes 1 damage, and then there's no so you then downshift. There's a lot of stages to the attack declaration, but you downshift first, and then if there's a critical, you resolve it. So since we've attacked, we downshift to 1, and then we go to this person's turn. And this is where an ability called Spirit Shift can be activated at the start of this person's turn. Since they didn't active guard, they stay in gear 2. Now they're allowed Spirit Shift at the start of their turn, and what that is it's a shift that then allows you to attack afterwards, but you're only allowed to do it once a turn. So you burn one of your spirit to then shift up a gear, and from there you can then attack because you've burned your spirit to shift instead of using your turn to shift. So in this case, there's not a massive point to it, because you'd be attacking with your gear 3 against like the weakest gear 1. So there's actually little point in doing that. We were in this gear, so we'll not use that, but that's just something you can do. You can spirit shift at either the start or end of your turn. So in this case, we can either the only attack that we have modifier is our alpha attack, which gives you a free shift if you get the critical, but also boosts your attack. But we'll get through regardless, because the only way to defend in gear 1 is to just use your natural guard or spirit guard, which I'll explain when the time comes. But for now, as I said, we're going to use the alpha attack. The defense is just a natural defense, that's all that can be done here. So then you go for it. So it requires a tails and a heads in that order. So there's a heads, but it's out of order. So we're hoping for tails, and you got it. So again, you got the coin flips, but not the critical, because the coin flips were out of order. So plus 300 attack, minus 200 defense, and that means the attack goes up to 1,600 against 400. The attack goes through. So 1 damage to Pants Penguin. I purposefully skipped this guy's first use of his ability, just so I wasn't overloading you with things now. But now that you've got the hang of attacking, I'm going to use the ability here. Both of these characters have abilities that activate when you take damage. In this guy's case, you flip a coin, and if you get tails, your opponent's defense goes down by 200. So he's taken damage, you flip the coin, heads, so it requires a tails, the ability doesn't work. This guy's ability is that if he's damaged, you flip a coin, and if you get heads, he may shift at his start phase. So that's not using your shift phase, so you can shift and attack at the same turn. It's like a free spirit guard, basically. Spirit shift, I mean. But yeah, that's the situation that we have right now. We've taken the damage, downshift, and it's the penguin's turn now. So you then have to decide, okay, what are we going to do? This actually has 700 defense in its gear 1. We've only got 400 attack and the opportunity to go up to 800 or 700. So it's probably best to just use a spirit shift probably right now. And so we activate the spirit shift, and we go up to this gear 2. Better attacks, as I said. We're going to use the beta attack this time. And again, we can attack because we spirit shifted instead of using the shift phase of the turn. So then it's this decision for this guy to defend. Sorry about that. My sister's cat's running about in my room, just knocked something down. But yeah, now it's time for this person to defend. Since they're in Gear 1, there's no active guard available, so they can either just defend with 700, which isn't enough, or they can do something called Spirit Guiding. And what that is you burn your spirit, you burn one spirit, and then you can add on to the 700 the defense power from any other gear on the card. So whether that be 1100, 900 over there, or 700. And in this case, it's probably best to just go for the highest one, 1100. So his defense goes up to 1800 for this turn because he's spirit guarded. If you spirit guard, you also have to downshift as well, just like active guarding. But in this case, it's a good way to defend in Gear 1. And spirit guarding really heavily comes into play towards the end of the game to keep it going a bit longer. But yeah, so we've defended that attack. The attack didn't go through. Shifts down a gear, and the attack and the game goes back to the Raptor. So there's no spirit in play for this turn. That probably wasn't the best time to spirit guard because, as I said, it's probably best to take about 3 damage pretty early on and then defend after that. But yeah, we go back to this person's turn anyway. And again, this is where it comes into play. The Gear 1s are fairly weak, so you're kind of incentivized to actually shift up. A few characters have some pretty good Gear 1s, but in this case the matchup isn't the best because his attack isn't enough to take out his natural defense and his attack isn't enough to take out his natural defense. So they'd be relying on the mods activating, which doesn't always work. But it's a quick way to get damage without wasting your turn shifting or anything like that. So we'll just shift this guy into this gear 2 because, you know, if you take damage you get to unburn 2 spirit. We only have 1, but it still activates. And then there's obviously if he takes damage, he may shift at his start phase. So this guy kind of wants to take damage, at least early on, and not defend it. But yeah, that's the turn here. Just a shift, and then it returns to this guy who, again, doesn't have any spirit, but can go for the shift. And that's how it works. You know, you get lulls in the game where you're just kind of doing these strategic shifts to actually take out your opponent using your power. And then sometimes you are spirit shifting all the time, and the game does accelerate once you start putting in a lot of damage in the game. But they're most of the actual abilities. Just going through the criticals, as it says here, when you get the damage critical, the red one, it does an extra damage. When you do the heal crit, you remove one of your spirits. And the duo crit basically just skip your opponent's turn, which means that you don't just continue on your turn. You do actually have to go back to the start phase and stuff like that of your turn. Refresh crit just basically unburns all your spirit, and then the shift crit gives you a free shift, so that gives you a little bit of advantage. And that's the main kind of gist of how the game works. It goes on for a surprising amount of time, considering it is only 1 card, but it is kind of there's ways to be defensive, there's ways to be offensive. It's all about kind of using the spirit effectively and shifting at the right times, and also, you know, getting coin flips. I was worried that this game would be really heavily about the coin flips, and while it is a part of the game, it's not like the part, the most important part of the game, because I don't think there's ever been a game that I've played that's been just completely decided by coin flips. It's helped certain characters, but for the most part, most of the strategy has been about being in the right gear at the right time and attacking from the right gear at the right time, stuff like that. So that's how you play the game. And I'm going to bring the video to a close here, so I'm not going on too long. As I said, links in the description to where you can actually buy this game. As I said, it's only 13 cards. It's pretty cheap. I think $15 shipped to America, $20 shipped internationally, and they also sell stuff like heads and tails dice that they made themselves. They sell little things that you can put on coins to make them the official kind of spirit counters in the game. They sell game mats as well, and there's little kind of sets of stuff that you can buy that's for a little bit cheaper. And there's also some mega cards. So these cards are Magic the Gathering and Pokemon card size, which you can also get mega cards, which are like pretty big. I don't think they have every character's available in mega card, just a few of them. But yeah, they also have stuff. I think like there's plans for an app to come out that has like the full complete rules of this game. Right now, kind of to learn how to play the game, you have to work off the rule book on their website because the cards don't really explain how you do it correctly. But so that app should have stuff like that on it and some tips. And I think a season 2 has at least been, it's planned but not yet announced. And they have some big announcement coming up at the end of the month, which I'm pretty excited for if it is indeed season 2. Because the one thing I can say about these cards is that it shows a lot of potential. Like as I said, there's not a specific obvious game style for some of the characters. There's one for each of them. It's more obvious to others than some, and I can definitely see as the game progresses and if they do a bunch of different seasons of the cards, them having some really kind of more complex characters with really specific play styles and stuff like that. I can see this game being pretty successful, but that obviously requires a lot of people to buy it. But as I said, link in the description to the shop where you can buy all their stuff. It's their own website. Thanks for watching this video about the Shift collectible card game, the single card game, and bye.